All right, so this whole video, I'm going to dive into all sorts of things about seed with a focus kind of on tree seed, but we'll talk about some perennials and annual seed stuff as well. Before we get into that, I just want to put this out there and let folks know we are offering a lot of tree seed through the nursery. I do a lot of seed work this time of year. A lot of it is for growing out our own plants to distribute plants through the nursery, but we do distribute some seed. Distributing tree seed through the nursery is something that's really, really meaningful to me. I get a lot of joy from doing it and just meaning, really. Over the years, I've grown a lot of seed that I have collected, but I've also grown a lot of seed that I bought from other folks or traded with other folks, acquired in some way. And this has given me access to trees that I would not otherwise have been able to access. And so being able to continue being part of that sort of network of tree seed distribution, like I said, it's really meaningful to me, and I just want to let folks know we have a lot of cool seeds available on the website right now. We've got a lot of persimmon seed from the Hershey nursery. We've got some honey locust seed from there as well, black locust, flowering dogwood, spice bush, golden raspberry, a few other things. It's all listed on the website. We've also got some evening primrose, which is a new perennial that we're adding this year. It's a wildflower. And I'm hoping to really keep expanding on the seed that we offer in the nursery moving into the future. But this video is going to be just a dive into what seed work looks like behind the scenes to make the seed distribution happen, also to make the tree nursery happen, and a little bit on some areas where I'm expanding. This year, we're going to be trying to go to some local farmers markets selling potted plants. We will have trees, but we're also going to try to branch into some of the herbaceous perennials and annuals and wildflowers and all that sort of stuff. So I'm also dealing with stratifying and handling a lot of those seeds, which are typically much smaller and different than the tree seeds in certain ways, but similar in other ways. But like I said, up front, I just wanted to let folks know that we are distributing tree seeds through the nursery. If you want to support us by buying some seeds, it goes a long way. That's what we've got available. We appreciate if you share that with your friends, and we'll dive into the video. And also, I will say, if you're looking for seeds, species, or varieties that we don't have, I can recommend you to some other nurseries that I like to support. Reach out if you have specific questions on where to find certain species. You know, I don't have a plug for everything, but for some things, I'm certainly happy to help anytime that I know where you might be able to get something. Real quick, a few good ones to hit, just if you're curious. Twisted Tree Farm, New York, that's Akiva Silver. Buzz Fervor, Perfect Circle Farm up in Vermont. There's Farrellwood Nursery in Western North Carolina. Humble Roots Tree Farm, somewhere in the Northeast. I actually forget exactly where they're located. But anyway, with that out of the way, let's dive into the actual meat of the video, the thing that I wanted to record the most, which is, like I said, the behind-the-scenes process, seed-saving work, which is happening. Sorry if that made you guys a little dizzy. Over here at the table, a whole lot of chaos going on. Let's talk about it. So this is all about seed work, the workflow about seeds in the wintertime in the tree nursery, the native plant nursery. I've been wanting to make this video for a while. It just hasn't happened yet. A lot of the videos that I want to make for a while that kind of keep getting pushed off, part of the reason is that they tend to be more challenging. They tend to be activities that span multiple days, and so it requires more organization to capture all of the workflow and actually edit it together into a video. And so the seed work is like that. This is a thing where, at least for me, for the nursery, the way that I'm doing things this time of year, there's little bits of seed work almost every day. There's some days where I have big chunks of seed work, but there's a little bit happening all the time. And so it's hard to capture all of it. It's also a little bit chaotic. The chaos is mostly derived from, I'm managing a lot of different species, and they're all different, right? The way that I handle them is different. And some seed I'm collecting myself, some seed I'm buying in. It's also, there's differences between I sell and distribute some seed through the nursery, and some stuff I only have enough of to propagate plants. So there's things that there's a differentiation between seed processing, cleaning work for seed that needs to get distributed through the nursery versus seed that's coming into the nursery just to propagate more plants, which I'll then distribute the plants. The other thing that complicates things a little bit is that I moved recently into this trailer that I'm in right now, as you can see here. If you want to hear more about that, I'm still on the same farm where the nursery has been for the past year in Virginia, Bassett, right near Martinsville, kind of southwestern part of the state. And like the nursery's in the same spot. You can hear a little bit more about the move and just what's going on in one of my recent videos reflecting on the first snow I'd seen in a while. I talked a lot in that video about the living situation and moving from that shared house into this house, trailer, mobile home, whatever you want to call it, that I'm in now. But so you can see a little bit of the chaos I'm talking about here. There's just a lot of different things going on this table. And today what I'm doing a lot of is annual seed. Well, actually annual and perennial, but more of the herbaceous wildflower type stuff. I'm not doing a whole lot of tree seed. I'm mostly going through seeds that I have purchased. You can see I've got a lot of stuff from the Experimental Farm Network, which if you don't know them, you should check them out. They have a selection of seeds that is I don't think you can access that many unique different types of seeds anywhere else. They're just a really amazing resource. Really inspired by the work that they're all doing over there. But yeah, today I'm getting a lot of these seeds need to get stratified. They need to go through an experience like winter, basically simulating winter. Milkweed is a good example. A lot of folks know milkweed needs to go through cold stratification. And so what I'm doing is I'm getting the seeds all into these bags. I printed out little labels. I'm reusing bags. These had Juneberry seeds in them, but they don't anymore. Putting a new label on it. The seeds are in there, and then I've got some slightly damp sand. I'm going to scoop this into the bag. We end up with something like this. This is wood aster, and the seeds, a lot of these seeds are very, very, very small. If we can get the camera to focus, for example, right here, you can see how small those seeds are. So I need to mix this bag up a little bit. They're not very well mixed in with all the sand. But that's kind of the gist, is I'm trying to get a lot of these teeny tiny seeds into these bags. You can see Willow is supervising, napping on the job. And I'm gonna have to get all those seeds, like I said, into those bags and into the fridge behind me. This table is also chaotic, like I said, partly because of the move. I've got annual seed of my own, stuff from the garden. This is popcorn, this is some flower corn. I've got all sorts of jars of seed that I haven't put away yet. That box is also full of seed, still kind of unpacking. So we can see here, this is all full of some of my hats, but also seeds, jars full of seed that are spilling all over the place. And I need to get them all kind of organized and into this little area. I think should be able to house most of them. But so there's kind of organizing, planning for the garden seeds going on. But the main thing that I really wanted to make this video about is processing tree seed. That's one of the biggest things I do. Is I'm a tree nursery. I propagate a lot of trees, mostly native, some non-native, with a loose focus on trees that produce food. And I also like to just share the experience of distributing plant material. And so some of what I've been doing, let me move this out of the way. Those are for a friend. That's why I have this rubber band, denotes that's going to somebody. Got some more sunchoke tubers up there. Those are going to be going down to the North Carolina site. I've got all sorts of bags of seed that we're going to distribute. Dogwood in here. There's spice bush. There's golden raspberry over here. I've got a ton of persimmon seed packed in here. And I wanted to just talk a little bit about the process of, plastic bag noise. But basically just there's a lot of directions that I could take this video. There's all sorts of different seed work that I'm doing right now, but the thing that I'm mostly wanting to convey is what it looks like to pack up tree seed for distribution. If you are a small nursery looking to get into seed work or anything remotely similar to that. And I have recorded some clips as I've processed tree seeds over the past few days, weeks. Like I said, today is mostly this herbaceous stuff that I'm doing here. And we're gonna see, hopefully I have recorded enough clips to kind of fully flesh out this video. Otherwise we'll have to record some more because there's always more seed work happening. Most of the native tree seed that I'm distributing falls into one of two categories. It's either dry or wet. So the only dry seed that I really have that I work with is redbud, honey locust, and black locust. Because these seeds are dry in their mature state, they come in a dry pod, we can store them dry for a long period of time, just like you would store corn or tomato seeds, any other garden seeds. And so for those, there's different processes to actually get the seeds out of the pods, which we're gonna kind of skip over that for now, but I do have a video on getting seeds out of honey locust pods. If you're interested, I can try to maybe link that in here somewhere. And it's the same process for redbuds and black locust. But what I'm talking about today is once I get to the point where I have processed all of the seed, I have a big bulk batch of an unknown amount of seeds, and I want to figure out how many I have to distribute and pack them up into small sizes, label them, all that sort of stuff. What I've been doing for the dry seed is getting small little Ziplocs. They're very affordable. You can get a bunch of them for only a few dollars online. And these are pretty low quality bags, but for the dry seed like this, they're not having to hold in any moisture. This typically works. And then I get bulk packets of these padded mailing envelopes. I have a label printer for printing shipping labels. I can kind of modify that. I can make a Word document with all what I want the label to say, print it out, cut it up into little individual pieces, and put a little piece of label on each bag. You could also handwrite labels. I've done that in the past. It takes more time, but it certainly works. And so the dry seeds are pretty simple. When it comes to the wet seed and a lot of the seeds that need stratification, they need that simulated wintertime condition, things get a little bit more complicated. This is another part that makes this video challenging, is with seed work, there's so much to say. There are so many things I want to talk about. And so again, we're gonna skip over all of the processing for wet seeds. So wet seeds could be anything from, dogwood, spicebush, persimmon, pawpaw. These are all seeds that at their mature state, they're in a wet or moist form. And by and large, it's pretty similar, all wet seed processing, but there's nuances to each species. And again, I've made some videos on that, which I can try to link to here, or you can, navigate my channel, or there's also a lot of other folks online that have great content about wet seed saving. But the basic gist is, again, we're talking about what happens when you get to the point where you've processed all your seed, you have a big batch of wet seeds, persimmon seeds, or whatever they are, and they're wet, you don't know how many you have, and you want to individually package them up, get them into the proper moisture conditions, and kind of hold them there until you can distribute them. So some of this is the practical, right? The conditions the seeds need to be in. Some of it is the logistics of knowing how many seeds you have as you're trying to figure out who you're going to distribute them to, whether you're giving them away, selling them, planting them yourself, whatever. One way to approach it is what I do for persimmons is I let the seed dry out. I don't want it completely dry. I want it to be, it's almost soaking wet when it comes from how I process it. And I want to let it dry in a controlled environment. I don't dry them out in the sun, but I'm typically indoors, somewhere with good airflow, not direct sunlight, but not too dark. And I want it, as soon as I feel like they're almost dry to the touch, they might just be slightly moist to the touch. That is the time when I want to bag them up. I want to hold them at that moisture level. The Ziploc bags, just your regular Ziploc bag, is generally pretty good for this because it is going to prohibit moisture transfer through the water vapor through the bag, but it will allow some oxygen to permeate in and out of the bag. And so whatever metrics you can use to count the seeds effectively, I like to count by tens and make a little mark. Once I get 10, then I make another 10, and then I get another mark until I get to the number of seeds that I want to put in the bag. I think everybody's going to have their own little tricks for how to count effectively without losing track. Again, I like to use the label maker, print out labels, but you could also write on the bags with Sharpies, handwrite your labels. There's a lot of different ways to approach that. I get the seeds in the bag and I stick them in the fridge. Another option that works that I typically do for smaller seeds or perhaps seed that's wet, if I don't want to take the time to dry it out, you can get seed that is sopping wet, and you can get clean sand or some sort of medium that is free of any other types of seeds or contaminants. You don't want to, have other weed seeds in there. Some sort of clean medium that is bone dry. I like to use sand typically, but there's lots of things that you could use. And I like to, one little scoop at a time, add sand into the bag until you get to a good moisture content. The real trick is that you don't want to see drops of water in the bag. If you see a little bit of condensation forming in the fridge or on the bag when it's in the fridge, that's okay, but you don't want to see visible drops of moisture. That's the optimum moisture level, is just barely moist. The seeds need to not dry out completely, but they do not need very much moisture at all to remain viable and to be stratified. And so you can basically use dry sand, mixing in dry sand to very wet seed to reach your optimal moisture without having to dry the seed and catch it at exactly the right time. Benefits to different methods when it comes to all of this sort of stuff. Pros and cons to different ways of doing it. Some people like using a medium because it's mimicking a natural system more. In nature, the seed would stratify in a medium. There would be microbial activity going on. It'd be stratifying, in the leaf litter, in the compost of the forest. And so if you want a really living soil approach, you would have a really healthy compost or some sort of live living medium to stratify your seeds in. The flip side is when you're storing seeds in the fridge, it's an artificial condition. It's not like outside. And I tend to have much more issues with mold in the fridge than I ever have storing my own seeds outside. For that reason, I actually often opt to just have seeds in a bag with no medium. I get them to the moisture content I want, I put them in the bag, it kind of holds them at that moisture content. And when there's no medium in the bag, it's very easy to quickly go through and inspect all of your seeds and make sure there's no mold. Because if you catch mold early, you can simply rub it off of the seed, dry them out a little bit, and they're okay. If you don't catch it early, the mold can damage the seed, it can kill the seed. Additionally, it makes it easy to see if any seeds are sprouting early, because this is another issue you can encounter, especially in the fridge. And this gets to another aspect of seed work that I'm doing, is there's a lot of seed that I processed in the fall, and I'm having to somewhat regularly go through the fridge and inspect them, make sure that nothing is sprouting, make sure that there's no mold forming. So anyway, this is a view into what it looks like to actually pack and distribute seeds as a nursery. This could be tree seed. All this could also be applicable to perennial seeds, herbaceous seeds, annual seeds. It's the basic gist with seeds is there's a lot of similarity between different species, but each species ultimately will have its own little nuances that the only way to learn is trial and error, I think. You just got to get in there and get your hands dirty, and you're going to mess some things up. You know, I've mentioned this in other videos, and this is an old idea. I think people have known this for a long time. It's not like I came up with it, but you're going to have to get things wrong. You're going to have some mold happen. You're going to have some seeds sprout early. You're going to have to experience those conditions and see what it takes to rectify and avoid that. That's what's going to make you a good seed saver. That's what's going to teach you the skills that you need, is hands-on experience, just getting in there and doing it. So don't be afraid to mess it up. There's plenty of seed out there. Seeds are special. They are sacred. I do treat it. It's a very important relationship for me, taking care of the seeds. But also, we got to remind ourselves that in the wild, which is, you know, it's weird to say in the wild and in the nature, because technically it's all nature. Saying in the wild, it points to this separation that we have artificially erected between ourselves and nature, as if we're not part of it. But anyway, I think you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. Out there in environments that are less impacted by humans, where there's not humans intentionally trying to grow plants, where it's just plants propagating on their own in the environment, the survival rate of seed is extremely low. Extremely low. You know, a tree might put out millions of seeds in order to get one mature offspring. And so just try to keep that in mind and not be hard on yourself if you do accidentally kill some seeds. It's going to happen. It's okay. But yeah, let me know what else in terms of seed work that you guys want to hear about. This is something, like I said, I really enjoy talking about it, making content on it, but it's difficult for me to make the time sometimes. You know, ultimately, there's a lot of things that I want to film and put on here. There's a limited amount of time and energy that I can put aside for filming these sorts of things. So I have to be somewhat selective. But if you guys have questions, I'd be happy to dive into any of this more. Just let me know. And otherwise, I will catch you in the next one. Thanks for tuning in. Happy planting if you're out there starting seeds right now. It's going to be warm before we know it.